The initial excitement of learning a new skill does not last, but that's when the real fun begins. Hi there, welcome to my second act diary. My first few years of learning how to draw were very inconsistent. I started sketching and I thought I was operating with a clear goal in mind. But the thing about art is that it's easy to misjudge how far you are from your goals, and there's also the tyranny of options. Because there are so many ways of reaching your end goal, there is no clear path to reaching this goal. When you start learning art, you'll hear the old pros going on about the fundamentals. You have to learn the fundamentals. They're talking about perspective, line weight, anatomy, that sort of thing. And looking back, I think that sort of advice is geared towards people trying to improve their art or people trying to get better results when they're drawing. But I was not struggling to get better results, I was struggling to achieve any sort of result. Now, what do I mean by that? Here's the thing. At the start, learning art is kind of a confusing mess. First thing you'll think of is tutorials, but there are so many to choose from out there and all tailored towards beginners. And it's not really a question of whether or not they are good, it's more a question of whether or not they are good for you. You can start with YouTube, which I'm sure you'll find adequate but basic, also uncurated, so you can't really find what you need at all times. Then maybe you'll think online classes. Cheaper than art school? Sure. Still not free. And there are so many to choose from. Even if you chose to fly the Jolly Roger and get as many as you can for the low price of free, working through just one tutorial is tough and you have to apply yourself. So it's a significant investment in time for something that at that time you lack the experience to judge whether it's right for you. And then we move to the fundamentals. I'll tell you right now, you ask any artist and they'll tell you there is nothing basic about the fundamentals. Art fundamentals are the difference between something that barely makes sense and a coherent drawing. But at the start, I didn't really know which end to start with or how to shift from practice to application. Art fundamentals you'll encounter early include lines, shapes, value, perspective, anatomy, and composition. Now, if this sounds like a lot, that's because it is, or at least it was for me. For starters, I had no idea how to prioritize all of this. What do you start with? What do you apply in a drawing? What do you practice? How much do you practice? Now, secondly is translating all this knowledge of the fundamentals into a finished drawing. I had no idea how to do that. And the answer seems obvious now, but back then, it was a real struggle for me. This now takes us to effort. Ask yourself this: how much effort do you want to put in towards learning a new thing so you can get your skills to where you want them to be? I think for many of us, the answer is as little effort as possible without compromising the result. And this was my mindset when I started drawing. I was in a hurry to get to the outcome, and this was also the reason why I took on the fundamentals in the manner that I did. Ironically, there was a fundamental flaw in that mindset. The final tree in this wilderness: your own desire to explore. If the only way to do art was with a pencil and a piece of paper, perhaps I'd be a much better artist now. But that's not the case. The world of art is rich. You have the brilliant artists on multiple platforms, interesting software, art challenges, tutorials promising you amazing new skills, amazing tools to make art development much easier. The list just goes on and on. There's a lot to explore, and it's easy to get lost in all this, feeding your dreams and imagination. But at the same time, all this time you spend getting lost in all of this is also time you might have spent doing the one thing that many artists will tell you helps to improve your skills, and that is just drawing. Now, just to be clear, I have nothing against exploration. I believe it is one of the purest forms of excitement that life has to offer. But I think for art development, you have to find ways of getting it beyond the initial excitement phase for it to be a lasting endeavor. I've had moments when I've gone for weeks or even months without doing a single doodle or sketch, and I had many reasons, some valid, some invalid, but I think for the most part I just found the idea of sitting down and looking at a blank page, figuring out what to put on that page, then starting to be more than I could handle. But then I also had moments when I did a lot of drawings, and these were drawings on many different things. I've done lots of figure drawing, anatomy, random studies, themed studies. I even tried to take on the 100 heads challenge, though for me it was more like the 25 heads challenge, and even then I took more of an exploratory approach. I think everyone has their wilderness, and the thing about my wilderness is that in as much as it seems to have been characterized by impulsiveness and procrastination, I also found a solution within it. This wasn't a solution to a question I was asking, it was a solution to a question I didn't even know I was supposed to ask. When you start something new, you think you know what your end goal is. But then somehow you find yourself unable to put in the work to reach this goal. How comes? Is it that what you thought you wanted wasn't what you really wanted? Is it that you knew the destination but not the path? Or did you know all these but underestimated the effort the journey would demand from you? Or perhaps you simply failed to account for how you as a person and your dreams would change through this learning process. Or is it all the above? I don't know. You may need to spend some time in the wilderness when you're learning a new skill. But at some point you have to ask yourself, what did you really seek to find when you first went exploring? In my case, the answer was, I went into the wilderness hoping to learn skills and tricks to make me a better artist. But underneath it all, I wanted to become a good artist without having been a bad artist. And finally, I was ready to accept that that's just not how this thing works. At that point in time, I decided to do the simplest thing I could do, and that was to just draw. No tricks, no lofty goals, just simple drawings, one at a time, one day at a time. It's just over 1 year later, and I've never felt more confident in my status as an artist. This will make much more sense in my next video, I promise. But for today, go bravely into that wilderness. If it doesn't lead you home, I hope you learn to make a new home within it. Peace.